How do you like that? I remembered the countdown this time.
I'm ready. I'm hyped. All right, let's go.
Nothing like a countdown to get the blood flowing. Cool. Well, yeah, we're live on the chat, but I think we're going to jump right into it today. I think it's going to be pretty quick because, gosh, I just don't want to break down every darn thing. And then I think we have plenty to talk about because, gosh, I just don't know where to go from here, honestly.
Yeah.
So I think we'll hit a lot of options for those who are about to tune into the real show. So here we go. Starting recording now. Welcome everyone to Flyover Fallout. It is the recap show you've all been waiting for. Maybe to release your anger, to talk about your fears, to, hopefully give fire to your hopes. We'll see if we can fulfill all of those things for you guys today. And to help me do that is Justin Hordiker. Justin, how's it going, man?
Going good, Phil. Thank you for having me back. Happy to be the sounding board here.
Always lucky to have you, man. Really enjoy chatting with you. And, this one I'm going to need a lot of help with, I think, because I'm starting to get a little bit flabbergasted with where the club is at this point.
Yeah,
I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I am still just like happy to be watching entertaining soccer for the most part. Like, obviously not going the way you would want it to, but after what we sat through earlier in the season, it has been a little bit better from just the entertainment standpoint. But yeah, obviously another game where you lose points from a winning position on the road against your closest geographical rivals. Not great.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great distinction because I traveled to Chicago, took the train, took two of my boys. It was supposed to be my entire family. One got sick. That's what happens. But we made the best of it. We had a really good time in Chicago. Even with the rain delays, my boys were awesome and we had a great time. I wouldn't trade that for the world. My hometown club. I'm going to support them till I die. So good distinction there. Wouldn't trade that for the world. I guess my brain just constantly thinks about how to fix this club. And I think this is the first time I'm like a little bit lost. But I think we'll go through that today together. I don't want to beat a dead horse. Let's jump right into it, Justin. The starting 11 was Berkey, Padelford on the left, Baumgartel, Kessler, center backs, Orozco on the right again, Leuven and Durkin, the dual pivots, Hartl on the left, Ostrak the 10, Songbin, the right winger, and Klaus up top. What'd you think about this lineup? Lots to talk about here.
Yeah, I think I was maybe sad first off to not see Falufal get the start again, but obviously understanding that Henry Kessler coming back probably deserves to get back in the lineup. And I think seeing his effectiveness in the second half maybe tells you that he should have been there and maybe.
Justin, I think I lost you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think I muted myself.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, just
can you start over? I think we lost most of that, so I'm really sorry. But yes. I think
my first thought.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can go through the whole thing. My first thought was just I wanted to see Falufal in the starting lineup again, but of course I'm okay with Henry Kessler getting that spot. I think with what he did in the second half, you maybe think for the foreseeable future you want him in that starting spot. And then I thought this was going to be a pretty important game for Chris Durkin and just the future of what the six looks like, but maybe not what you want to see from that midfield.
Yes, I hope we bring up Durkin a lot today as we talk about this. A lot of complaints from everyone about Fall not starting. And I enjoyed seeing Kessler in there. I thought he had a great game. I think we all thought maybe if Kessler was going to play that it would be Baumgartel that would be the one to come out. So that was interesting. I think I saw some comments from Lutz saying that was a coach's decision. He threw him under the bus a little bit and almost implied that perhaps that will be discouraged in the future. I'm not sure if that's where we should take it, but I'm just saying you guys should go find those comments on X or Blue Sky and you can decide for yourself. The other big one that I don't think we want to dig into right this second, but a lot of people were after in hindsight talking about Orozco starting over Vollum and Totland, and Totland being the hot one. Like, Matt asked in the post game, what happened to Totland? What's going on here? And the comments were extremely interesting. So I don't know. Without too much hindsight here, were you surprised to see Orozco starting again?
I just think that he's played well enough, and I think with Holland that there is maybe thought that there's some liability, like defensively, and like Orozco like has done the job pretty well for what you're asking of him. Like, but again, to the point, like not a natural fullback necessarily. Like, what is his natural position in this roster in this lineup? I don't know. I do want to see like what Holland looks like with kind of this setup, and maybe he now gets an opportunity with how things have gone, but. I don't think that was as glaring to me of an issue, just because I think Orozco has played well in the past couple of games.
Yes. And then, so just a review here. This is almost the same lineup as last week against Nashville. And so I think I felt a little bit positive,
Yeah.
I think we figured some things out last week. You and I talked about that. And now doing something similar, adding Durkin over Morales might have made that even better in some ways. If we were thinking that Baumgartel and Kessler could do better than Baumgartel and Fall, then perhaps this is going to be a really good game. I was positive going into this, thinking, Critchley tends to make the right decisions. Let's see how the day goes. So a lot of good and bad and kind of all over the place as we go through this storyline. So let's dig into it. The bad being right off the bat, 2 wins in the last 9 games is something to keep in mind as we go through this, even though the last game was the best I think we've seen all season. First half, things to note. I noticed they were defending in a 4-1-4-1 with Durkin sitting in as the 6 nominally. And that is what happened in the second half against Nashville, at least at first. So there's that. I thought, just like every seemingly game for the last several weeks, that St. Louis was pretty strong from the get-go. Critchley said they didn't get their feet under him until the 20th minute. But here's a few things quickly that happened. In the first minute, Padelford dribbled to the end line, crossed in low, didn't get through. 4th minute, good passing on the counter. Klaus tries to lay it off for Songbin. This happened a few times. It was like Klaus just randomly sent the ball into space, holding the ball up, doing good hold-up play. There just wasn't someone in that wide open space close enough to make something happen. 5th minute, Padelford's long fall throws continue to be dangerous. This is just, I'm going to say this once for, let's say it happens about 5 times a game lately. So something
we
for
love the
Padelford.
long throw. I'm a big fan of the Devin Padelford long throw. Yeah.
It's been dangerous, and it happened in the 5th minute for the first time. 7th minute, Hartle and Padelford. There was a giveaway for the counter. And so this is the first sign of like, okay, this is what Chicago's plan is. This is what we're going to play right into their plans with. They got a really dangerous ball that looked a lot like, from the opposite side, what ends up being a goal later in the game. So that was really scary, but it was defended out in the 8th minute. Second or third effective press kind of happens. It was Durkin kind of chasing, I think, the right back or something all over the field, and he finally gives up and fouls him right outside the box. That was nice to see the press working when they went after it. That's something in the post game. Critchley was proud of the intensity of the press, is the way he phrased that. In the 9th minute, Chicago had another counter, and it was an Orozco weird header, which I wasn't too upset about, but it was really scary, the defending that happened after that diving in, the frantic defending. So that happened. We're about to get into something serious. Those are very light. What did you think about the first part of the game, Justin? Did you agree? Did you feel like they were off on the typical good foot that St. Louis has been having?
Yeah, I thought, and there were moments where Chicago did have some momentum, but they also pretty, I think both these teams are just so deeply broken that they were just going to look good for either side. But yeah, I thought, if they could get to halftime, I thought, what we're about to talk about, where Chicago does score, I think that's probably a fair representation for how that first half went. I think a lot of the Critchley thinking that things went well after the match, I think talks to colors how the halftime adjustments went. But the first half, I did notice the press was very aggressive early, and I thought that they were having some success, but I think Chicago were just able to figure out how to pass around it after a certain point.
Yeah.
And, there was a lot of not to say chasing, but players being pulled out of position. Once they broke that press, that was an issue.
Yes. But that's typical. We saw that even more with Carnell because it was that much more intense. So It is what it is. It's part of the deal, but we're going to get into that some more too. 15th minute, Chicago builds to Gutman on the left wing. This is that cross to Kuipers that I was talking about. They attempted it earlier from the right back position. This time it was perfect. I don't know. What'd you think about the defense on this play? I thought
you had to stop the ball coming in because he was just running that. He was going to win that race to the ball because he's faster than either Fidelford or Mount Gornales is like two people that he's running at. So yeah, it's just like once that cross is made and it's in a good spot where Berkey's not going to come out of his box to come get it, and then like he's going to win that race to the ball. So because things went down the left and you weren't able to break that pass in.
I completely agree. It felt like once the ball was where it was and the defenders were where they were, they took advantage of each little opening in the defense so perfectly that there wasn't much they could do. I don't necessarily feel like the defending was bad here. It would have, it would have had to been like a preemptive. Say again. Yeah. Be faster. Exactly. So yeah, anything else you want to say about that one or?
No, yeah, I thought it was like probably just a good team goal from Chicago to find those spaces. And I think they kind of talked about it post game too, of like St. Louis found some spaces going forward, but Chicago, I think, found a lot of the same spaces just with how like expansive things had become.
And just of note, I noticed a lot of attacks both ways. The attackers were outnumbered in most cases. So it is, again, they played it perfectly. The ball went in. 22nd minute, Kessler advanced. This is my favorite, one of my two favorite plays of the game. Kessler advances the ball pretty far into open space, breaks multiple lines to Klaus running between two defenders. He took a decent touch, but it went a little too far, or he tripped over things, and he ended up taking a soft shot and went straight at goalkeeper Chris Brady. Amazing chance. This is why you played Kessler, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought there were definitely some moments, especially this opportunity. Trying to go through all the Leuven had a good opportunity too that does end up going on target around the same time. They were finding some moments, but just not getting either taking one too many touches. That was on Leuven's opportunity where he takes one too many touches in the box. I don't know if it's confidence thing, if they're just not feeling confident to take those first time, or finding a pass that is one too many.
Yeah, and that's the 26th minute. Leuven gets the ball in the box and he takes maybe he could have taken a touch the other way and shot as fast as he could. Once he took that other big touch to the right, it was defended out at that point. So well said there, but it was a good, that's what they're trying to do. They were almost successful with that. So
dropped a defender in the box. I think that should count as a goal a lot of times.
If only in this situation. 30th minute, there's this is a really weird one where Hartl kind of goes off on a pressing mission on his own, and it looks like no one kind of does what they are supposed to do, or it's not a full-on press. And Chicago breaks the press very easily, and then they pass and pass and pass and pass, and eventually the ball ends up right where Hartl's supposed to be defending if he was playing a normal 4-1-4-1 defensive role. And it didn't, nothing happened, but I just thought, man, this was so clearly a break of the press. One man does something and the rest of the team didn't follow. And it's just they're professionals, and the ball went exactly where the hole was. I thought that was so crazy to watch that in reverse. So there's that, and it happened multiple times through the game. 34th minute, press nearly gets one from Davila this time. Similar situation where they track him down. He's running, gets away from him. That could have been something. I thought, again, the press, when it happened, was really good. I almost want to see more. Do you think that's a bad idea?
Well, yeah, because I think do you think there are opportunities where they're kind of stuck between whether wanting to go full out on the press or if they should stay back in the channel a little bit more. And I think in that moment, where Hartl's the only guy chasing, then it just becomes so much easier to pass around him, find that spot where he was supposed to be. You almost, because they were having some success breaking up some of those moments, and I thought that they won a lot of balls in the attacking half, in that first half especially, that maybe you can take advantage of if you're more engaged in it. But then again, maybe Chicago just pass around it more easily if everyone is pressing that hard.
Yeah, you have to. I constantly wonder that kind of stuff. So I'm glad you're kind of feeling the same way here. That's mostly it. Chicago gets a dangerous free kick in the 46th minute. Some weirdness happens because of the whistle and whether or not they blew it or whether they were ready. It is what it is. I didn't think there was much there. Honestly, that's the first half, in my opinion. Anything you'd like to say? We do have some stats and it might help us, but do you have anything here, Justin?
No, I thought that was fair. I think Chicago did have a little more success with their attack. So like the 1-0 score line, I think was fine, even though I don't think that like City were outplayed necessarily. I thought it was pretty close, but Chicago at home, I think right now are the more organized team also, of course, but yeah.
That's well said. And I think the stats show that. So the XG in the first half was 0.63 to 0.34 to Chicago. Shots on target, Chicago got 1 out of 9 on target. Geez, my eyes are going bad right now. 1 out of 5 for St. Louis. Possession, 52 to 48. That was the same as the Nashville game, actually. I didn't have to change anything on that one except for the word Chicago. Field tilt. Passes in the opposition half, 108 to 89 in favor of Chicago. Passes in the final third, 46 to 40, pretty close. Now, touches in the box, 11 to 10. Those were all in favor of Chicago, but the 11 to 10 is very close, obviously. 46 to 40 is extremely close, especially if you're away. The opposing half, it just looks like Chicago had a little bit more control in the opposing half. Now, here's something that I've never been able to get an exact stat on, mostly because I don't look at him as much as Matt does. I kind of just rely on him because he's so good at it. But
let's hear it.
This stat in touches in the opponent half. You just heard the numbers of the touches. Here's the percentage, the passing percentage in the opposing half. It was 84 to Chicago %, 75 to St. Louis. In the final third, 81% to Chicago, 73 to St. Louis. I don't have it for the opponent box. It's less important in my opinion anyway. To me, that felt like what I saw. Like I've been saying, boy, in this game, it feels like we didn't have control over the midfield, or it feels like we were so wasteful, especially in the midfield or on the flanks. That stat right there to me tells me that Chicago was a lot more effective with the passes that they use, not just having more of them.
I think that's like a feeling I've had after a majority of, especially road games this year, just like not taking care of the ball, and like some of the goals that they've allowed on the road too have come from just these like careless turnovers when you have momentum going your way, and then it's just deflating from there.
It is exactly because you guys know you've seen it a million times. So I'm glad
I don't need to tell you. Yeah, you've seen it.
You know what the feeling is like. So again, just the eye test kind of seems to me to come through to that. That's something that I think I'm going to start watching every single game, because I think that's something that would improve this team a lot, and maybe even like turn the tide in some of the problems and not just the attack, but the defense. Like you said, the giveaways are so dangerous going the other way.
Yeah, I talked like some of Critchley's comments post game do kind of hint on that, just because they were, like I mentioned the word expansive, but because they were chasing that third goal, not to get ahead of ourselves, I want to talk about the second half a lot, that they were chasing that third goal because they knew they had to win. They knew they like needed all 3 points, and it just, I think, caused them to be careless in pursuit of that goal, in pursuit of goal scoring. And in the comments, somebody mentioned that like they weren't in a compact unit at all, and I think that's something, if you look back to a lot of the Nashville game, but in some of the games that they played better under Critchley, it's because that defending unit has been more compact to the point that you can't pass through them because those spaces aren't there.
Yes. And there are some plays that we'll talk about here going in the future here where I'm just like, is Durkin a true 6, even though he's playing a true 6? And I don't even want to say Morales did a better job because he came in later and that's when some of these late goals were happening. So I want to talk about that at the very end. There's so much debate I'd like to talk about with that. And I think that's one of the things we should talk about. But let's dig into the second half. Again, this won't take long, guys. We're speeding along here. Good stuff's at the end. 46th minute, Berkey's third or fourth long transition ball.
Oh, he wanted one of these. He wanted one of these so bad.
Yes, he did. I mean, to the point where he was sending it into traffic some of the times or sending it long. Not that, I mean, that's fine too, because we know what Klaus has been able to pull off in the past.
Yeah, there's I forget when in the second half, there's a moment where like Chicago had a shot, it went just wide, it like hit off the end board and bounced back to him, and he like sprinted over, threw the ball back in play, and like kicked it as far as possible because St. Ben was like kind of making a run forward.
Yeah. Yeah, mind melding. That's exactly what I was thinking about as well. Well, this one was really nice. It fell to Klaus, and he was able to get it passed over to an on-running Songbin. This is like when you think of having someone like Klaus and someone like Songbin, when Songbin came in, as like, this is the play we're looking for, and times 100. Like, we'd like to do this more. It is direct. It's not pretty soccer, but it does work for us. So they were outnumbered. And they were forced to kind of hold it up and possess a little bit, but that still has the defense semi on their heels. Leuven draws as they possess around the box. Leuven draws defenders to the left side, and he's able to kick it out to Padelford. The cross was defended, but it kind of fell to Ostrak. He kind of stabs the ball, and it falls to him again. He shoots the ball with his left foot, and it went top left corner. It's a goal. It's his first goal of the season. He has 2 assists this season as well. We've been praising him, and he kind of got the reward here. And I feel like his stats have been creeping up as well as far as production. So this was nice, right, Justin? This is kind of what we want to see, even though it's not.
I think we both highlighted him when we talked last for Nashville, and I think his play against Nashville is really good, and then rewarded. This is the best game he's had as a City player. Maybe in his career, because I was looking, I don't think he's ever had a 2-goal contribution game unless there's something buried I couldn't find. But yeah, good night for Tomasz.
Absolutely. 51st minute, Klaus with the ball, moving out of the box. He backs heels it into space again. Ostrak is too far. Good idea here from Klaus, right? But it's just like either the guy's in the wrong place or Klaus is sending it too far away. Maybe a little bit of both, whatever you want to call it. Good idea. It didn't come off. 52nd minute. There's a build out. Baumgartel sends it to Leuven. Leuven to Klaus. Beautiful play here. This is like we kind of baited the defense in with like a pass to Ostrak in the build out, and he sent it back to the defense. This happens a million times, but this time they were able to get to the ball to Leuven, and they were able to kind of get onto a run. The ball ends up coming out to an on-rushing Orozco, I think. Could have been Songbin. I might have gotten that wrong, but I think it was Orozco. He does a cutback pass. It doesn't come off, but that was a really good chance. That's the kind of stuff I enjoy seeing, like going from 0 to 100 and getting a chance out of it in a build-out situation rather than passing the ball around the box. 54th minute, Songbin presses the keeper, and no one pushes to organize. Okay, this one bothered me. Now, I'd had this like Gen X ugly post the other day about trying harder and is Critchley getting the best out of our players. And I saw this play, and it really bothered me because Songbin pressed really hard and the ball got sent out, but it ended up coming back to the keeper for Chicago. And Songbin was still kind of upfield. Klaus was in a weird position. Hartl was in the center. And Klaus was like, no, stay up there. And then Songbin kind of ignored him and came back to his right wing spot. But Klaus hadn't gone right back up to his striker position. And so Hartl tries to kind of make up for it. Meanwhile, Chicago throws the ball out and they pass, and they're already into the final third within a couple of passes because of this casual nature of that situation. I'm sure Songbin's tired. I'm sure Klaus understands how tired he is and wants to cover for him. It's awful. These are professional players, and they're just jogging into place while Chicago's attacking. And to me, that was one of a couple plays that I'm probably going to post. It bothered me so much how casual they were and how dangerous the attack was because of that. Do you remember this, or is that just me?
Yeah, no, because there were a couple of times when it seemed like the press was like kind of disjointed with one player chasing and then like no one covering. So like I said, they just passed through it. And I do wonder, because I think Tomasz Ostrak mentioned a little bit of just the things that they've been working on in training, and just like you mentioned at one point calling it almost a new system. And I wonder if that means that like maybe there's some overthinking there, maybe there's some confusion on like what the pressing trigger is, or maybe it's just a misunderstanding between like Songbin, who also hasn't been around the system very much, because like coming from Minnesota, they play something completely different. So like where it almost feels like there's a disconnect there of like someone not understanding either the pressing trigger or like what exactly they're looking for.
I agree. And it just, I guess I want from professionals there to be like, we all know what we're supposed to do. We sprint to those places to make sure we're solid before we get our break.
I'm not saying that as an excuse. I'm just saying that as
no.
I wonder if that contributes to it. Yeah.
I think you're right. Because have they had time to drill it? If they had a preseason, maybe that's how it would have looked. You know what I mean? And we'll have a couple more plays that kind of talk about this. 56-minute Roscoe Kessler off for Vollum and Fall. At this point, it's 1-1. Did I miss a goal? Nope, I did. The Ostrak goal. Okay. So feeling okay at this point, right? If we went home with 1-1, it wouldn't be a disappointment. Some people might think, oh, Roscoe and Kessler off, Vollum and Fall on. Maybe this is how we should have started the game. Anything you noticed immediately from these guys coming on?
Well, like this was kind of at half when I was thinking of like, what does this game need? Those were kind of the changes I thought. Not necessarily Fall for Kessler, because I was wondering if that would even be Fall for Baumgartel. And then I'm not sure if they're. It seems like they want Baumgartel out there to be like the anchor piece. But yeah, I thought Wallum could inject some of his kind of like paciness in the game as well. Yeah, I thought these were the right subs to make. And then, having kind of an almost instant impact.
Yes, completely agree. I thought perhaps these should have been the starters, and maybe we get more conservative if we get a lead. But I understand starting the other way around. No arguments. I'm not going to throw a big fit about that. 58th minute, Zinkernagel makes something out of nothing. Outnumbered, but Padelford is catching up. Berkey makes a save at the near post. This was, number 11, Zinkernagel. He was amazing throughout this entire game. He's like, I don't even know if he's a TAM player. Like, he's just a normal guy that ended up being incredible. He's 30 years old and he's from Denmark. What kind of signing does that sound like, right? Does that sound like a loot signing?
Yeah, and it's crazy just how you can just come down the lesson and show up like this if you play well with your teammates. Like, I think that's part of it too. Like Brian Gutierrez and Hugo Kuipers have just been like so good too that because of the way that Chicago's attack has just been firing on more cylinders this year, that like I think Zinkernagel benefits from having less attention on him as well. But yeah, like did not expect this out of a player like that for sure. And like these goals were pure class too.
Yeah. Before we get to that goal, we do have a St. Louis goal. 58th minute, Vollum and Ostrak have a beautiful interchange. Like, this is kind of that immediate impact you were talking about from Vollum. Ostrak crosses it to kind of no one. I think he sees a player. It's a nice cross into a beautiful space, curling out. The defender misses it, luckily, and it falls to Hartl, who just doesn't miss. He slams it home. So this was a good goal.
Like, so calm too with that ball coming to him. Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, like
this is when I was like, okay, they're onto something here. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not like gorgeous soccer, but if they're knocking on the door, if they're sending the ball in, this kind of stuff constantly happens, especially if it falls to someone like Hartl. So, we're very happy at this point. I think we can do this. Something did change with Nashville. We're a good team now. 61st minute, first minute. There's a defending the counter with Vollum in over Haziel. Oh my gosh, I have terrible notes here. I apologize. This was like a counter that was really good, and this is like Bama gets in on the left wing, and all there is to defend well is the two center backs, Fall and Baumgartel. Vollum's chasing Bamba. He's close. He kind of reaches for the ball as it gets passed through, which ends up being a bad choice because Bamba gets the ball in the end, and then Vollum's a couple steps behind instead of half of a step. Bama goes for a goal. He sends it in, and the late runner is Gutierrez, and who's open because Durkin's chasing him. And, the center backs are there, but they kind of have to step to Gutierrez because he's the late run, and they were kind of holding their line. And so this is just an interesting, when we're talking about, do we have a true six? Like, should we have had three players sitting in case of a counter at this situation is one question I have. The other question I have is, yes, Vollum just got a goal with Ostrak, but he's also behind on this run, and that's something Haziel didn't do the entire game. And so this is going to speak to that debate on X over who wanted Totland to start. Well, here we have Volleman over Haziel, and immediately a counterattack gets through. It gets defended out because Fall, dives and saves it.
Yeah.
It's one of his better last-minute plays.
After the game, if you look at the goals added chart, Fall led both teams in goals added because of the save. I'm pretty sure it's just like a goal line save, saved a goal. Absolutely, yeah.
Yes, I love that post from you on Blue Sky. By the way, that was great. So anyway, I just wanted to point this out as this, if you wanted a defensive start with Haziel on the right back, or if you wanted an attacking start, I feel like we got a first half full of defensive stoutness on the wing. And then we get this, right? This is extremely dangerous and a little bit irresponsible, in my opinion. So
I guess I just don't. My problem is when did we decide that Conrad Wallem was a fullback? As a wing, ask him to be a wingback so much different than being in a 4-2-3-1 on that right side. Yeah, I just don't think that's necessarily his game, and expect it's setting him up to fail if you're expecting him to play fullback.
Yeah, and to be honest, to add to that debate, I think it'd be interesting if we want a more defensive look. Maybe you start Volem at right wing instead of Songbin, and then Songbin's your attacking. You want to do that away? I think that's a good idea. But to be fair, that's one of the post-match comments from Critchley saying it was the question about what the heck's happened to Totland. He also threw in there we also aren't sure where to play Volem. He didn't say it like that. He said it in a much better way, but it was we're a back four now. What do we do with Volem? Kind of is the way he phrased it. So it's something to talk about. It's part of the debate, and we're going to have it in a second. Let's finish out this game. I'm going to rush through these. 66th minute, Zinkernagel does it himself. This is the one where he is running at goal. He's got, I think, Durkin chasing him again. Someone chasing him from behind.
I think Leuven.
Oh, it is
Leuven. It's the last one on him. Yeah.
Thank you. It is
where
Leuven.
He just needs to pull him down at that point. Yeah, he gets on his inside and then he just has a free step towards the goal.
Yep. And I don't know if Leuven had a yellow, or maybe he probably should have just pulled him down. I think you're right. And then he kind of wrong foots Fall. And then he kind of takes another step and shoots with his left. And I think Berkey thought he was going to go left or middle. So wrong-footed Berkey in a way too. So unbelievable play from Zinkernagel.
Everyone was kind of screened on it too, it seemed like. And
yeah,
it was a very good shot.
Yes.
Very good goal.
A lot of things went right, but it made Zinkernagel look like an absolute pro. He looked amazing. So, props to him. Good job, Chicago. I don't know, other than having someone sitting in and making sure that doesn't happen, like a destroyer, I'm not sure we have an answer for that in this case. But
and I think a lot of these goals are just more team breakdowns versus individual breakdowns where you could point to, yes, someone should have been in that spot, but it's because the ball's moving so well elsewhere that they're dragged out of that position to potentially chase the ball. Yeah.
67th minute, Ostrak Durkin off for Morales and Celio Pompeu. 68th minute. I'm going to skip all these. Let's go straight all the way down to Klaus being off.
Dude. That hasn't been quick at all. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. 84th minute, Klaus off for Betcher. 87th minute, Gutierrez gets his goal from just outside the box. Zinkernagel draws two players out to kind of mark the ball closely, and they're just kind of this is a counterattack. Everyone's out of position. We see Volem dive in to kind of stop whoever has the ball, or Zink with the ball. Zink goes backwards. Volem retreats to his spot. I think Fall takes a stab at it at some point, goes back to his spot. And then they drop the ball to an on-running Gutierrez. And, he's had, at this point, 6-7 shots from in and around the box, mostly outside the box. And most of them aren't really marked that closely. And I think at this point, they're have a go. You keep missing. At this point, he gets a perfect shot off. It's skimming the top of the grass, smooth, hard for Berkey to track, goes in the bottom right corner. At this point, it's 3-2. Gut punch. Anything you want to say about that, Justin?
No, but it does. I think it's what kind of drives that conversation around what they need to do at the six, because a lot of these, not just their goals, but their scoring opportunities do kind of come from exploiting that area directly in front of the center backs, where they're just where gaps most of the night for them to kind of sit in and exploit.
Which isn't that considered the Man City zone? And it's considered the Man City zone because that's where they feel like it's the most dangerous place to score a goal or assist a goal for that
Yeah,
matter.
because if your center backs are worried about, like, especially marking the striker and someone that is chasing into the box, and now you have the space in front of them that, it's, if you're playing in a 4-3-3, the midfield usually is going to be like not necessarily concentrated in front of those two. So that's where ideally having a 6 that does like sit in that spot or is comfortable staying in that spot and not chasing too far out, potentially is good. But again, it's a whole team spacing issue versus one individual player.
Yes. Almost there, guys. We're about to talk about that. Second half stats. XG is 0.78 to 0.73 to Chicago. Shots on target, 4 out of 10 shots were on target versus 2 out of 8. Chicago beat us on that. It was close. Possession 50-50. Interesting. Passes in the opposing half, 95 to 72 in favor of Chicago. Again, the percentage here, 76%. We did better disrupting them. 67%. So it's even worse completion percentage in the opposing half for St. Louis. In the final third, 54 to 48 touches in favor of Chicago, closer, 73% in that each side. So tied. Touches in the opposing box, 14 to 17. STL had more touches in the opponent's box. So if you're looking at field tilt, I think Critchley is a little bit happier about that. Overall in the game, now I've seen other XG. This isn't exactly the same. This was pretty close, 1.41 to 1.07 in favor of Chicago. MLS stats on Blue Sky had it way different, much worse outlook for shots and for XG. So the total as far as FOTMob is concerned is 5 out of 19 to Chicago, 3 out of 13 to St. Louis, possession 51 to 49. I'm not going to finish the rest because I think we've covered all that pretty carefully. I want to talk about that. Let's get back to the Durkin comments, the 6. We're talking about a true 6 sitting in and destroying, right? And I just watched Bournemouth. I just watched Tyler Adams, who is the epitome of that, right? And when we see this guy just like putting out fires all over the place, I see Durkin covering a lot of ground. I see Durkin pressing really well, breaking up the ball in the midfield. But if I look at what he does in a game versus what Tyler Adams does in a game, it is totally different, even though they're playing the same exact position. Don't you think?
Yeah. I think Durkin, if you think of like a box-to-box midfielder, I think that's kind of what Durkin brings versus someone in like that 6 role where they are more anchored deeper in the midfield. They occupy that space more often. And like, I think Tyler Adams just like knows positionally, like instinctually where to be. He's such a silky player that I think Durkin works very hard, but sometimes that like works against him too, because he just will chase and chase and chase, and then now all of a sudden he's leading the line of the press for some reason.
A little spicier take from Brett Stillman in the chat as well. It's a spacing issue because Durkin thinks running around aimlessly is what he has to do instead of maintaining any type of shape. Under Carnell, that was great. You know what I mean? Like if Lutz is out there looking for a Carnell destroyer, like Durkin's perfect. So there is a difference in that as well. It sounds like we're
I guess it's a question of like,
that.
what do they need in this formation? Like, what are they trying to get out of the player in that position, this formation too? Because maybe it is more of what's being asked, but yeah,
does
like it seems like
does Critchley need to be like, Durkin, don't freaking move out of the center spot. And if you do, then Leuven, you're gonna have to run your butt back here, and then just feel free to yell at Durkin for leaving and making you cover and not be a ball progressing 6-8. You know what I mean? Like doing the Leuven things we want Leuven to do. I don't know what the answer is, but these are the people we have for the rest of the season. I think you and I are starting to agree that like a 6 is one of the bigger problems.
Yeah, unless you're like, especially if you are convinced that the 4-2-3-1 is, or the 4-2-2, whatever it ends up being, is the way to go versus like a 3 center backs. I think if you have this 3 center back setup, so say you have Fall, Kessler, Baumgartel as your 3 center backs with your wing backs, then it's not necessarily as important that you have a player to sit in that position, because that's ideally what your extra center back there is for. But if you are in the 4-2-3-1 where you need one of those players to not venture forward and keep the lines connected a little bit more, then like, yes, there just has to be a player that positionally feels more connected to that spot.
And I think you transitioned us perfectly into the next section is I do think Orozco was sitting back more. So he was that third player sitting back. And so Durkin wasn't called to be back there quite as badly. Baumgartel and Kessler and Orozco, I think those three are perfectly capable of putting out fires, even 1v1 out wide or stepping into the midfield to break something up. They're good at those kinds of things. So I think that's why defensively we looked okay on the counters, better on the counters in the first 60 minutes. And then when Orozco went off, we were attacking more. Some of that looked better. But again, we need that third player back there just cleaning things up. And it just, in my opinion, it wasn't there. I'm open to someone proving me wrong, but from what I saw on the rewatch, there were several instances. I skipped over several more examples of it just not being, that third player just not being in the right place at the right time.
No, I think that's right, because I think when they have played, because like most of the season, especially since Critchley took over, or I guess most of the season since Critchley took over, it has been that four in the back, but really one of your fullbacks is a center back. They're just rotating depending on who is like overlapping into the wing, right? So with Orozco staying back, with Padelford the one that's getting forward, you essentially are playing three center backs, even though it's going to be called something different in the formation. But like Orozco is more of a center back that like plays a little bit higher than a fullback.
Yeah. Okay, so the final discussion, at least for me, and Justin, feel free to pose a question after this, but the big debate on X was Rocchio came in and kind of said, based
Always
on
have the scene of the cry in that Rocchio.
Yeah, he loves to stir the pot, and I enjoy it. I think it's good for us all. And I think we had a good discussion here. I think we saw when the 11 came out, a lot of people angry that Orozco was starting on the right at right back when Totland is available, Vollum is available. They're better two-way players or better attackers at least than Orozco. And so we saw Chat City Tactics post up two graphs, one of Totland, one of Orozco, to kind of show that the attack just isn't there under Hazil. I didn't have a problem with that necessarily. Sometimes those graphs can be misleading, but I thought that one was at least a good conversation starter. Rocchio backs him up and says, this is what needs to happen. Totland isn't bad enough at defending to make the loss of attack worthwhile. So take that times 100, and that's what else we were getting on X, from random fans around the world, mostly in St. Louis. But I think that's a fine thing to say. Critchley himself said, I want to play Hazil as a more defensive-minded fullback against Chicago, who has really good wingers. And so Justin, the last thing they kind of said is, or at least my response was, you've got fullbacks who can attack and pin back wingers just as much as you can have a fullback to shut down wingers. They're kind of two schools of thoughts and everything in between, of course. So I don't know. As I'm speaking all of these options out into the ether, Justin, do you have a preference in this game, or do you lean toward one side or the other on that?
I think just because Yazil has been like good in possession, maybe that is just me misremembering how things went last time Thomas Totland played. But I didn't think that Yazil Orozco was like so bad that it like required this large conversation whether he should be in the lineup. But no, I do agree that they do sacrifice. Like you do sacrifice the attack. Like Thomas Totland is much more going to get forward. That just like is how he wants to play. He wants to get in on the rush. So maybe it's having that extra attacking option and like using that as part of your numbers forward. Like you said, Phil, maybe like being more on the front foot also helps you out defensively because now you have more numbers going forward, or at least have someone that is plugging that space that wasn't there previously.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does feel like this game was like fine margins of like if they just tweak something here or there that they come away with at least
I agree.
a draw. Like, do you feel like if it ends 2-2, Phil, do things feel a little bit better today, or do you think it needed to be a win?
No, I think 2-2 would have been fine away. Because I think I think I said it last week. Like it feels like something got figured out. I'm not saying they turned the tide. I wasn't saying that even in the last episode. But I do think we found like a baseline for something that could work. You know what I mean? Now that was at home, and I think we'll repeat that at home. Exactly that kind of thing. I think they tweaked it a lot because they were away. St. Louis seems to always be more conservative away under Critchley. And this was like a more conservative decision to maybe make sure we defend it out rather than, pin someone back. And I think that's fine because I think it's what works. We've talked about in past years how much it's easier to defend and counter than it is to kind of score a goal against a bunkered in defense. So like, I think that's a good way to go about it, hoping Chicago tries to press their guys forward, defend out with zeal, and then get a counterattack. I think it was a good plan, but it wasn't what worked against Nashville, not exactly. So I don't know what to say about that, but I do think it's just like that's the strategy we went for. If it was 2-2, I think we would go back to home and try to repeat Nashville and go on about our lives and continue to tweak away games. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I think we figured something out at home, and away still needs to be figured out. And I don't know what that is. I'm still confused. And I think that's what I was getting at is I don't know what to think right now based on those thoughts.
Yeah. They've only won twice on the road the past 2 years. So yeah, it's something like no matter who's coaching, no matter like what players are brought into the roster, something isn't working with the scheme away from home, away from Energizer.
Yeah. What if we had lost 3-2 and Volum had started? There's another question for you.
Yeah. My other thought is, like, Phil, do you think that starting Sangbin, like, does that change the equation of who plays behind him also? Like, does it look different if, say, like, Volum is starting on the wing? Like, does that open up for Dolan to then come in and play underneath him, or do you think that matters?
Absolutely. I think a Volum Totland might be kind of the best of both worlds, right? Like we get when we're away. I'm just saying away right now because we haven't figured out what to do away. Volum defends better, and if he plays high, we'll get that benefit from the attack. Maybe even as close to what Songbin does already. So we're not losing a lot on the attack. We'll gain a lot of defense. And then maybe we trust Volum and Totland to rotate on the right side if someone presses super high. Making sure we stop the counters because Totland may not be as good as Haziel defending, but he'll have help from Volum. I think it's a fun thing to try. It's one of probably 20 options, you know what I mean? But I like that thought. What do you think? Do you think it's worth trying? I think my problem is like, I don't know what to do. I'm so lost with, what is the best way to go about things with this team?
Because it seems like they're stuck between like wanting some verticality, but also wanting to stay compact. And I don't know if there is the speed on this team to like have both. I think they have to choose one or the other.
Because Volum's not as fast as Songbin. That's a very good point.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's the answer. I think we need the verticality. I think it's vital. So maybe Songbin can't be replaced.
And then like, do you start Celio on the other side? So you have like vertical threats on both sides versus just keying in on Songbin every time. These are the things that keep me up at night, though.
Same. And I think that's the kind of overall point is I think fans are feeling the same way. And even if that comes out as, this team sucks or, they shouldn't have started Haziel.
Yeah.
I think if the tactics are questionable or unsettled, that's kind of where fans go, right? They don't know how to verbalize, the options, and they just say this sucks or so.
Yeah, and I think like you can look at Chicago just like how quickly you can turn things around in this league. Like Berhalter comes in, like they're much more organized this year. They're better coached this year, and they've definitely picked up over the second half of the season. I think you remember that 7-0 game where they got blown out in Nashville. And they have like significantly better from that moment. So like it's a reminder of what like a good manager can do for a squad also. Not to say anything against David Critchley, but he's still like 4 months into his professional coaching career. So you're not expecting perfection out of him at this point.
Absolutely. So I think we've put out there like all the things that are unsettled, and I hope everyone continues to have conversations and think things through. That was my main goal here. I don't think we should all just say someone sucks and it's over. I think there's so many things we can talk about. There's so many things that could change, different changes they could make, so many options. So I guess that's my last question is, these defensive failures, I think we heard Critchley saying how good the press was or how intense the press was. He said he's never been so proud of a team this year as far as how they've performed under him. which he admitted is kind of probably hard for fans to hear. I guess, like, are these guys giving their all? Does what Critchley considers like a good shift, does it need to be better? Does he have the experience to know he needs to ask, maybe 5-10 times more from these guys? When we look at what Carnell's been able to do, when we look at some of the more intense teams around the league, or the more professional teams with high expectations around the league, when we look at like what Berkey is probably hoping everyone does in front of him, and the level of professionalism he expects in front of him, is, does Critchley expect that much, or is he going to get that much out of this team? I think that's my final question that keeps me up at night. And I'm starting to think he's not getting enough out of these players, whether that's trying hard enough, whether it's their talent, whether it's expectations.
Yeah, I think like the end of the season just has to be like finding the right mix of like what 14 guys are going to give you the best opportunity of winning a match. Like that, I think has to be just the mission over these last 8 games. Yeah. Obviously, like playoffs are such a pipe dream at this point. And, for Critchley, just again, figuring out like those little tweaks in the system that he has to make. I'm sure like he seems very analytical. He seems to think about this a lot. Yeah. So a lot of data point, but like, it's hard because I think it looks different if he had a preseason also, and like isn't trying to completely like rebuild the psyche of an entire locker room in the process. Yeah, I think he was the right guy to come in with where the locker room was at that time. But like, is he, going to get the most out of the players going forward?
Yeah. And is the culture broken and just needs some kind of a restart, whether it's his fault or not? I felt that way about Hack. Did he unfairly get, he didn't get a preseason. It's impossible when you don't get a preseason. But look what Olaf did with a preseason. So, it goes both ways. I took a lot of time with my random ethereal questions, Justin, but you have a new article in STL Mag about Fallout Fall. I imagine that's something we'd like to see fall from the start, maybe going forward. And perhaps that's kind of something special that was in the Nashville game that will solve a lot of problems going forward. Anything you'd like to bring up, whether it's that or anything else you'd like to say about
this game? I think that center back conversation is interesting because now all of a sudden you went from having like no healthy center backs to having the choice between Kessler, Baumgartel, and Fallout Fall. And I think Fallout Fall just brings something that this team hasn't had from a center back. Like just with his athletic ability to be a disruptor, as we saw in the Nashville game, and like his ability both in the air that we haven't necessarily seen yet, but if you look at his highlights from elsewhere, like he is a big threat on free kicks. And I thought there were a couple free kicks in that first half too that like, he could definitely use his aerial ability on.
And he's good with his feet. There was like a recovery where he just like stuck his foot out and grabbed the ball faster than I think I've seen any center back.
Like I've never seen a player like him come through St. Louis.
Yeah, the eye test is there, guys. I don't have any stats to back it up, but I think Fall starting for the rest of the season is probably something we should put in pen, in my opinion. So even just to develop him for next year, it just makes sense, guys.
Yeah, and that should be like, and that gets to the point though. Like that should be the goal for this year. Yeah. Like I think Critchley, even if he's not with the first thing, like he knows he's going to be in this organization. Like I think just having the want to figure out like, okay, who is not just best for this roster going forward, but you also need to start getting those young players ready to like step up. Like, do you just throw Jake Hurd-Reich out there at the 6 and hope for the best?
Well, to catch us up on the chat, Chris made some good comments kind of backing us up, saying, who he wants in the attack. For him, it's Songbin, Hartle, and Padelford and Tots, on the Songbin and Hartle cutting inside, Padelford and Tots on the wide wings. So he's saying doing that with a 6 providing coverage, or, have a stay home fullback. That's fine too. He's kind of agreeing with some of the things we said. Stillman's last spicy comment is let Joyner and McSorley get some run. Dang it. So he made some comments about the kind of players we would need if we want to press. So good stuff in the chat today, guys. I'm sorry I didn't get some more of it in there, but I appreciate you guys coming out and joining us.
I wonder what it would take for McSorley to get I think they like him a lot. So I wonder like what would be the catalyst to get him like a more extended run out.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the press would look better. I always like when academy kids come up because they press so much better. They work so hard, but their shortcomings.
True. Yeah, if you watch 82, I think that's like a lot of their success is just those guys like don't quit.
It's so much fun. Props to them. Was it 12 unbeaten? City 2?
Yeah, they're like about to wrap up playoff contention like so early in the season.
Love it. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. Again, less stats because Matt's not here, but we got a lot of thoughts that we can all think about
Less
as we go
stats, more
forward.
vibes. Yeah,
Yes.
welcome.
Thanks, Justin, for joining me in that and playing along with it so well. Why don't you let everyone know where they can find your stuff one more time before we go?
Yeah, I will have my recap of this game up on my Substack here shortly. I also will have some NWSL coverage from this weekend that I'm looking forward to write because there's a lot going on within the league. And then, of course, my St. Louis Magazine newsletter comes out every Wednesday. I have a feature on PD coming up this week. So if you are subscribed, that one will be really fun.
My sons are obsessed with Petey. If I scroll past a picture of Petey, they're like, wait. They love it.
He's a good boy. I just want it to be known he's a very good boy.
Very good boy. All right, y'all. Thanks for listening to us on Flyover Fallout. I'm Phil, and for Justin Horniker, we'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you for having me, everyone.